So you're saying that UFO...
First chapter of Ezekiel. Go back and read it. You'll think you're on acid or something. And realize, too, it's the King James translation. He translated it from Aramaic, I believe. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me on that. I'm not a biblical philosopher. I just read it. Yeah, it's in there, and it talks about a visitor coming down. It describes the craft. It describes the landing gear. In some translations, like a traditional pad that comes down, like you've seen in the science fiction movies. I look at those stars in the sky, and those stars, the light left those stars before the time of Christ. And that is the vastness of God's great universe. And honestly, do you think we're the best that God can do?
This is a Flipper Zero with some custom modifications. It does a lot. So this is just a proof of concept device, but when you start to add your own little additions onto it like this, I'm not gonna hack your Wi-Fi, but I'll give you a little example of what I could do. I'll just do something stupid, but I'm not gonna shut your network down. I can show you on my phone, or you could look at your phone, but instead of me mirroring your network, I just created a bunch of fake networks. So all of these networks here, they probably appear to be legitimate, right?
Yeah.
But they're not.
These are all fake networks?
They're all powered by me. So as soon as you connect to any of those, I have your password, I have anything in between.
There was a loud explosion, and later the next day, a farmer was out paraphrasing all this. He found some material, what we'd call a traditional flying saucer. He reported it. The military came in, Army Air Corps at Roswell. Military intelligence put out a press release, said saucer recovered. Headlines, boom, across the country. Then the next day, they came in and said, oh, it wasn't a flying saucer. It was a hot air balloon, and they bring this poor colonel out. There's famous pictures of him showing it's clearly some kind of balloon apparatus. Military intelligence went from a flying saucer to a pile of cloth and stick.
You have also stated in previous interviews that American soldiers' body parts began showing up at the base gate in trash bags. Let's start with the trash bags.
What hurts me the most about the trash bags probably happened a couple years ago. Talking to one of the spouses whose body parts were in that trash bag. And she can't use trash bags. She just can't use trash bags anymore to think of that. I don't know what the delivery was for. I don't know if it was to give them back, and that's just the only way to do it after they hacked them apart. I mean, that's sad when that's how you identify people, is in body parts in trash bags delivered to your front gate. I think the body parts were from probably part Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart and maybe one of the crew chiefs.
Whatever happened with the Kennedy assassination, the issue is it's become a highly politicized organization that is very risk averse and very tilting towards perpetuation of the status quo of party power politics. Although I have grave concerns seeing Bobby Kennedy's son running for office, asking for Secret Service protection, denied by the Biden administration. I have a business partner who's a real ballistics expert, and he's done all the analysis on what the Warren Commission found for the shooting of John F. Kennedy, and there's no way it was a lone shooter. And I even read an analysis of urban sniping that said there's no way it was one shooter. In 1992, Congress passed a law that said within 25 years, everything related to the Kennedy assassination must be declassified and released to the public. The 25-year date was 2017. Mike Pompeo was a CIA director, and he didn't release the documents.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet.
Very much so.
Always has been, always will be, and will be inserting clips on her response to Benghazi several times throughout the interview. I want to show who she is.
She's worse than her husband.
A lot of people say that this was triggered by a YouTube video. This is her statement. I condemn in the strongest terms the attack on our mission in Benghazi today. The United States deplores any intentional effort to denigrate the religious beliefs of others. Our commitment to religious tolerance goes back to the very beginning of our nation. But let me be clear, there's never any justification for violence acts of this kind. So she's making an apology. I can't figure out who the deep state is.
It is not, so this is the whole point. It is not one person. The model of there being one puppet master individually saying that I'm pulling the strings, it's the wrong mental model, right? In fact, in many cases, it's comprised, this is the harder part to see, because then it gets really confusing when you first think of it this way. There are many good people as individuals in their individual capacities as lives, as fathers, as neighbors, as coaches, who are part of that machine. It's the nature of the beast itself is not comprised of one human being with an intention. It is the machine, the Leviathan itself, that goes beyond a human individual. So it is a creation that's a...
And then I see off in the distance standing fully upright, this 6'6" giant of a man in the back of this UTV. And I thought, that's odd. So I yell his name, George. And I can hear kind of muffled. It's almost like yelling underwater. I proceed to walk to get closer, and he's not responding. And as I near the vehicle and shout his name again, he's standing upright with his eyes closed. And right as I'm nearing the vehicle, all of the ambient noise, all of the sound comes back. As I yell his name again, his eyes fluttered open. And he looked down at me. And I said, why are those things hanging from the fence line? And the security at the time looked at me with a straight face and said, the Native American neighbors that surround this property place these animal bladders on the fence line and bless them to keep the demonic spirits and entities inside this property and off of their property. The tribal leaders in the Uinta Basin and surrounding property had been telling their people not to even look the way of the ranch. They were told, don't even look the way of the property, or else you may have demonic forces, entities that would follow you. Based on the data, there is an intelligence operating on that ranch that has command over space, time, over consciousness, can manipulate closed systems in a split second without leaving a trace, and I believe has the ability to communicate if we can understand or develop a common language at some point to be able to interact. Eric Bard, in particular, has had communication with at least one of these entities. He's definitely seen and documented evidence that we're dealing with an intelligence that does have the desire to communicate. He asked out of frustration, he literally asked verbally, if you have something to show me, show me. If you have something to tell me, tell me. In that instant, the screen morphed and digitally composed letters instantaneously of I living.
You're me. How did Tesla do it?
Tesla, I think, was actually capturing resonant magnetic field energy of the Earth that's almost boundless. So there are a lot of, quote, free energy approaches. I think the ones that use these very high voltage systems that create a sort of a vector, a tap, into this quantum vacuum energy and zero-point energy field. Those began to be stumbled across, but sort of episodically as a phenomenon back in the late 1800s, because that was the heyday when they were first discovering electromagnetism. And I think Maxwell and some of these guys stumbled across this, but they didn't know what it was. You were getting more energy out than you had to put in. So I think you can have a rotational coil-based device. Floyd Sweet, who we feature in the movie, had a solid-state device that was about this big that could run a 300 horsepower electric engine for your...
How are you able to tell which one of these are man-made versus ET?
At a great distance, you would know. If you're up close enough, the man-made ones are going to have components, protrusions, electromagnetic, often seams, welding marks. Underneath there could be pipes. It's very clearly a man-made machine. The extraterrestrial ones, seamless. They're extruded in this process of how they create them. Even the light they give off is very different because it's coming through such pure material science. I would love to get Dr. Jacques Vallée to release this document he has from 1985. It's a CIA official document, and it describes the CIA conducting alien abductions in Brazil and Argentina, quote, for their psychological warfare. We've proven what they are. Well, you know, I have 755 whistleblowers.
You have 755 whistleblowers?
Yeah. I mean, this archive is unbelievable.
You had mentioned that you would want to debate Lou Elizondo.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I mean, someone brought that up a couple years ago. I don't have any animus towards him personally. I just know what his role and function is because I was given a heads up on it as soon as he emerged out of the Pentagon and stood up his operation with this young guy I used to hang with, Tom DeLonge of Blink-182. He'd stay at my house in Virginia. But what you expect counterintelligence and disinformation agents to do is to do exactly that.
Right before the sunrise, you can see exactly where it's going to come up. I got up there at night, stars were everywhere. I watched all the stars disappear. I watched the moon disappear. I watched the sun getting ready to come up, and I'm looking out over the horizon right where the sun's about ready to peak, and I see this UAP. And at first I was like, oh, that's probably just a plane flying straight at me. There were no chemtrails up there, not even a hint of any airplane jet. It was that early in the morning. It wasn't a plane. It was sitting in the exact same spot, just sitting there. While I was walking around, I looked away and I looked back and it was gone. And I was like, damn, the sun's about ready to come up. It came back. Just looked like a little dot, and I'm gonna put it on screen so everybody can see. I don't know what that was, what it represented, if I was supposed to get any meaning out of it, but all I know is I saw a UAP. I've never seen a UAP.
I haven't either.
And that was a UAP or a UFO, whatever you want to call it. 300 million people wiped off the map just like that. And how long did you say that would take?
9 months.
This attacker knew exactly where to hit. And they did it deliberately, and they did it multiple times, and they did it very thoroughly.
There's a playbook for it if you're so inclined.
Absolutely. There is absolutely a playbook.
The EMP Commission, which is a commission that was mandated by U.S. Congress, and it has much more authority and better funding than a congressional committee. They found that as many as 90% of Americans would die.
I've seen strange glowing orbs, like balls of light that change direction. I have no idea what that is. Is that an airplane that
You've seen that?
Oh, yeah.
How many times?
Maybe 3, and only in the last 2 months while I've been shooting this show.
Wow.
But what is it? Could it be like an alien aircraft? Maybe. It could also be a domestic aircraft that forgot to turn off its headlight. Probably not, but it could be. It could also be a natural phenomenon. I've learned about things like ball lightning. Have you ever heard of ball lightning?
No.
Lightning, the environmental conditions that create lightning, can actually be created on a small microcosm and in a ball. So it's lightning in a ball. It just looks like a light. There's also indicators, pre-indicators of earthquakes. There's geological effects that happen that release energy, electromagnetic energy into the atmosphere.
An EMP threat. What's the probability of that happening?
So an EMP, it can be the end goal. You can't create it like in a movie where it's like a little electrical battery that just sends out a pulse. It has to be something of a larger explosive. EMPs are also the natural byproduct in a nuclear detonation. Most people, when they think of a nuclear bomb, they think of a nuclear bomb that comes and is delivered by a rocket, hits the Earth, and then explodes, creates a mushroom cloud and a fireball. What they don't realize is that a nuclear warhead can be detonated at any altitude. A large warhead at a high altitude, you would have a huge EMP. Anything that's got a smart chip, modern day cars, cell phone would be neutralized. Your old school Chevelle should still be good to go, but your Tesla would not go anywhere. It'd be a brick. The more likely way that we would see anything like this happen is we would first see a cyber attack that would neutralize our ability to identify the incoming weapon that would discharge the EMP.
Do you think that this is a realistic scenario?
That was drain pipe that flag was put on. People don't know that. We had no polo for a flag. We didn't know anything about a flag going up on the mountain. So they found this drain pipe and they put it together. And the Japanese used it to get rainwater down in the cave. They couldn't remake their water. They couldn't purify it like we did. We purified our water. It didn't taste too good, but it was pure. And when we get up to the crest and stand there, let's get to that wall. There it goes up. Man, it was a shock. And everybody saw that flag go up out in the bay. All those ships out there let go in the air with tracers and rockets. And our boys that were on the north fighting with the airstrip while we're doing Suribachi, they started opening up with tracers. It was just like a spectacle. It infuriated the Japanese. They fought twice as hard. We put our flag on Japanese soil for the first time in history.
How far were you from that flag?
Well, from here, that picture on the wall.